Hello, and welcome to our last portion of the Scrolls of Ezekiel, chapters 47 and 48. What a beautiful way to end this lovely journey that we embarked upon. How many weeks ago already? It's been about 4 months now that we've been going through these scrolls and just digging in and truly receiving such beautiful riches through our Heavenly Father. Yes, 4 months. When you think about, I guess, all the portions, like this is, I think, part 19. So yeah, four and a half, 5 months or so it's been. And it's been great. It's been great. So we're just gonna jump right into the reading tonight. We're gonna read these two chapters and see how truly straightforward they are, but still spiritual because obviously there's always the connotations of our Messiah, glimpses of him all throughout the scriptures. And as we've seen throughout all of these portions, the book of Ezekiel is no different. So we're gonna jump right in. Let me go ahead and open up to chapter 47. And I think we're just gonna read through the entire chapter. Yeah, it's only 23 verses. And then we'll do what we do. So Sylvie, take it away.
Okay, and I'm gonna read from your screen.
No problem.
Then he brought me back to the door of the temple, and there was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple towards the east. For the front of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. He brought me out he brought me out by the way of the north gate, and led me around on the outside to the outer gateway that faces east, and there was water running out on the right side. And when the man went out to the east, and the line in his hand, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters. The waters came up to my ankles. Again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters. The waters came up to my knees. And again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through. The water came up to my waist. Again, he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not cross, for the water was too deep, water in which one must swim, a river that could not be crossed. He said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. When I returned, there, along the bank of the river, were very many trees on one side and on the other. Then he said to me, This water flows towards the eastern region, goes down into the valley, and enters the sea. When it reaches the sea, its waters are healed. And it shall be that every living thing that moves, whether the river, wherever the river go, will live. There will be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters go there, for they will be healed, and everything will live wherever the river goes. That reminds me of my dream. It should be that fishermen will stand by it from En Gedi to En Eglaim. They will be places for spreading their nets. Their fish will be of the same kinds as the fish of the great sea, exceedingly many. But its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They will be given over to salt. Along the bank of the river, on this side and that, will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Their leaves will not wither, and their fruit will not fail. They will bear fruit every month, because their water flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for medicine. Thus says the Most High Elohim, these are the borders by which you should divide the land as an inheritance among 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph should have 2 portions. You should inherit it equally with one another. For I raise my hand in an oath to give it to your fathers, and this land shall fall to you as your inheritance. This should be the borders of the land on the north, from the Great Sea by the road to Hethlon, as one goes to Sedad. Hamath, Berothath, Sibraham, I'm killing these names, I'm sorry, which is between the borders of Damascus and the border of Hamath, to Hazar Hattikon, which is on the borders of that. Thus, the boundary should be from the sea of Hazar Enan, the borders of Damascus, and as for the northward is the border of Hamath. This is the north side. On the east side, you should mark out the border from between Haran and Damascus, and between Gilead and the land of Israel, along the Jordan, and along the eastern side of the sea. This is the east side. The south side, towards the south, should be from Tamar to the waters of Meribah by Kadesh, along the brook to the Great Sea. This south side towards the south. The west side should be the Great Sea, from the southern boundary until one comes to a point opposite Hamath. This is the west side. Thus you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. It should be that you will divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves and for the strangers who dwell among you and who bear children among you. They should be to you as native born among the children of Israel. They should have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it should be that in whatever tribe the stranger dwells, there shall give him his inheritance, says the Most High Elohim.
Amen. So I love the way that the chapter ends, and obviously we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but we already see that there is the promise of inheritance for those who are grafted in. So he leaves nobody out. He makes sure to include everyone who intends to follow him and be a true a true believer, a true follower of the way of our Messiah. So let's go into the slides. Okay, so first off, we have the beginning of this chapter is speaking about a river that is flowing out of the temple here. So let me minimize. Okay. So Ezekiel saw something that never existed in the temple before. So it was a river flowing directly from the temple itself. And he uses this imagery to affirm that the new temple, like the old, will be a fountain of blessing for Israel. Significantly, the river does not come from a king's palace or a government building. It doesn't come from a marketplace, a place of business, or an athletic arena. It comes from the Most High's house. The waters seem to have been at first a small quantity, and we see it as how it gradually increases with every 1,000 cubits measured by Messiah, who is leading Ezekiel, as we have seen through this vision. For the words implied that they oozed or dropped out, they were at first so small that they came drop by drop, but then they increased. In all of its recorded history, Jerusalem never had such a river. There were streams and springs, but never a rich, mighty river, and never one flowing from this part of the city. In the semi-arid geography of Israel, a river like this was both a blessing and a miracle. It brought life, growth, vitality, refreshment, hope, and security. And we're going to see through the connecting precepts that the word just makes it plain that that's exactly what these waters represented. And I say that to say because a lot of us are familiar with the marine kingdom, and what has dwelt in the waters from the beginning, the spiritual darkness, and those forces that we essentially leave behind when we make that intentional decision to be baptized in waters and come out as a new man. But I believe that these waters, as Messiah himself spoke of the living waters that would flow out of those who believe in him, are a representation of renewal. So, together with his guide, Ezekiel went into and through the waters. And this river was not something for Ezekiel to simply look at or think about. It was something for him to enter into. He was fully immersed in it. He says specifically, it was a river that I could not cross, for the water was too deep. The rapid increase of the river's depth and the power showed what a mighty river this actually was. It soon came to the point where the water was over Ezekiel's head, and all he could do was swim. So fundamentally, this shows us the miraculous nature of a real river in a real messianic kingdom to come. Yet, by spiritual analogy, there is a powerful picture of increasing progress and depth in our spiritual life. There's always these beautiful metaphors that show the representation of our journey with our Abba, and through our Messiah. It illustrates a progression from ankles to knees to waist to depths where one can no longer touch the ground and must swim. The Most High's people read this and feel a call to go deeper. They shouldn't stop until they are swimming and essentially carried along by the Most High's currents and just comfortable in that place. And that's what our faith and trust in Him looks like. Just trusting Him to be the one to settle those waves, the ebbs and flows in our life, and carry us through our trust, through our obedience, through our sacrifice, through everything that He calls us to do so that He can prune us and mold us and allow us to bear that good fruit that He provides. I'll stop right here, but I wanted to read these two precepts because verses 8 and 9 speak about the waters, how the water shall be healed. So it says in the water shall be healed, and it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the river shall come, shall live. So we have Psalm 1 and Mark 8. Psalm 1, verses 1 through 6 says, Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Adon, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Adon knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. And then in Mark 8:22 and 25, it says, And they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought to him a blind man and begged him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. And when he had spit on his eyes and laid his hands on him, he asked him, Do you see anything? And he looked up and said, I see people, but they look like trees walking. Then Yasha laid his hands on his eyes again, and he opened his eyes. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. I included this one because we see, I believe it's in verse 8, the description of the trees that were along the river. And immediately, like, that's what came to mind, just thinking about his people just being, along those rivers of the living waters. And I don't know, for me, it was just very refreshing to go through these precepts and see our Messiah, like I said, see our Messiah all throughout, recognizing him. And it's obviously, the more that you read the scriptures, the more that you dig deep, the more that you eat the scrolls, you are able to identify him, and see him from the beginning all the way to the end. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience. I feel like it feeds that intimacy that we need, because we are emotional beings and we want connection. We crave connection. So to be connected to our Heavenly Father through the scriptures, identifying the redemption, the love that he has for us, our identity in the scriptures themselves, it just makes all the difference. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else. It makes sense to me, and it's just been transformational for me in my walk with him, to see myself the way that he sees me, and embrace that. I just did something to my screen. Hold on one second. Okay, here I am. You guys can still see everything, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So let's go ahead and just jump into some of the connections here. I'm gonna go through first verses 1 through, I'll stop at like 7 and then we'll continue. So for verses 1 and 2, we have quite a bit of connections here. Starting with Psalm 46 and 4, and it says, there is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of the Elohim, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. So right then and there, it's like this, I feel like it goes hand in hand with chapter 47, showing that that river is coming out directly from the temple itself. We also have Psalm 42:1, and it says, as the deer pants for the water brooks, so pants my soul for you, O Elohim. So that's our hunger for him, right? The hunger that we have to know him, to receive from him, and be refreshed, having him quench that thirst that we have to seek him. Jeremiah 2:13, for my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewn themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. So here he's identifying himself as the fountain of living waters. So we're seeing that he's showing his face basically in, or yeah, showing his face and letting it be known that he is there. He is the one who is there in those rivers, that living water. Next we have John 4:10 through 15, which says, Yasha answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of the Elohim and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. And this is him when when he comes to the Samaritan woman. The woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock? Yasha answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will never will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. This, my gosh, like we're gonna continue just going through them because, like I said, everything it connects so beautifully, and this is just the scriptures interpreting scripture, because you don't really have to add too much context when you see the clarity of what it's saying. Joel 3:18, it says, and it will come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drip with new wine, the hills shall flow with milk, and all the brooks of Judah shall be flooded with water. A fountain shall flow from the house of the Adon and water the valley of acacias. Again, coming out of the temple is that fountain of living water. Zechariah 14:8. And in that day it shall be that living waters shall flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea, and half of them toward the western sea. In both summer and winter it shall occur. So again, we see in, I believe, let's see, let's go back up. Where was it that we saw the directions that they were flowing out of? So we see flowing from the temple toward the east, and in front of the temple faced the east, the water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. And here it's speaking of the eastern half of the water shall flow, half of them toward the eastern sea and half of them toward the western sea. So it's similar directions are being spoken of here. Revelation 22, 1, and then verse 17. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of the Elohim and of the Lamb. And verse 17, and the Spirit and the bride say, Come, and let him who hears say, Come, and let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely. So again, we're seeing that these waters are good. They are like a positive thing. They're a good thing, something to look forward to and be cultivated as well in our Messiah, or through our Messiah rather. I'm sorry. I'm having an issue here with this Zoom, trying to close everything out so that I can see clearly. Mm, okay. There we go. I had to minimize a bunch of things here. Sorry about that. All right. So next we have, and this one obviously is one of those that when you listen to it, I don't know, every time I read this, it gets me, it just hits my heart every single time. Because this is him speaking on the last great day, on the eighth day. So John 7:37 and through 39, on the last day, the great day of the feast, Yasha stood and cried out, saying, If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. But this he spoke concerning the Spirit, whom those believing in him would receive. For the Holy Spirit was not yet given because Yasha was not yet glorified. So we see that there is a connection being made here of the waters being a representation of his Ruach flowing in us. And our bodies are majority, so what, 70 to 80% composed of water. So if you think about it, his when we are filled with his ruach, it's something that can essentially dominate our entire being if we allow it, if we continue to abide in him and allow for him to abide in us. It's a beautiful exchange. Isaiah 2:3 says, Many people shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Adon, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Adon from Jerusalem. I just can't wait for that day. So it's like, as I know that throughout these studies, throughout these portions, as well as Isaiah, because these two prophets, they prophesied very similar things. We've seen these scriptures over and over and over again. And my prayer is that they've come alive in your hearts so that every time you see them, you're able to, make that connection, identify that his word is alive and active and not repetitive because it's fresh every time that you hear it and read it, but it's so interconnected and it makes so much sense when you read the book. from the beginning to the end, knowing that there is really no break in between. It's just everything flows. Okay, so I have also some Enoch and one portion from Sirach as well. So we're going to read first Enoch 26, verses 1 through 3. And it says here, and I went from thence to the middle of the earth, and I saw a blessed place in which there were trees with branches abiding and blooming of a dismembered tree. And there I saw a holy mountain, and underneath the mountain to the east there was a stream, and it flowed towards the south. This is the same stream, the same direction, even more specifically than Zechariah. Sounds pretty much word for what we read in Ezekiel. Um, it flowed towards the south, and I saw toward the east another mountain higher than this, and between them a deep and narrow ravine. Well, let me finish the sentence. In it also ran a stream underneath the mountain, and to the west thereof there was another mountain lower than the former, and of small elevation. I'm gonna stop there because this is speaking of all the different mountains that are surrounding New Jerusalem as we can interpret it. But we see once again this Enoch is speaking pretty much verbatim what Ezekiel saw as well. So both of them had similar visions. And then we also have Enoch 48. Sylvie said, it's instruction and correction to lead us to eternal life. Amen. And even physical to live while we're in this world. Yeah, I always think about it like how what it is. It's the word itself is our moral compass. And a lot of people see it as legalism or that it's religious or however they want to word it. But at the end of the day, you're following these man-made laws that essentially are very similar in nature to what the Most High instructed us to do. And everything is always for our own good. At the end of the day, whether we want to see it or not, everything that he instructed us to do is for our own good. All right, so verses one
I
through
just can I just say something?
yes, of course.
You know, like as I think, even to like even with Moses, he gave instruction, like here's the laws, here it is. Like he had to write it down for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the same for us. Here's our book, here's our tablet, which, you know, for us it's even more, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it's our instruction. So how could you see it as a burden
Right.
or
Or as bondage.
correct or heavy or difficult? It's like read it. If we all read it and put it to practice, what a beautiful world this will be. But you know,
You're so right. And if you think about it, it started very simple, right? Because prior to the law being written, Abraham and Isaac and well, no, I'm sorry. Yes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they all followed the law as it was instructed to them by Shem. And they didn't need something, or I mean, at least as to our understanding, how we've from what we've read, they didn't need a huge amount of books in order for them to follow. They just knew. And obviously it was because they had the presence of the Most High and they had seen his wonders. They had seen the fallen angels come down and mate with the women and all of the giants and everything that took place, right? Everything that took place prior to the flood. Shem was able to communicate that to his descendants, and say to them, for this not to happen again, you need to do this, this, and this. And as time passed, as more sin abounded, we needed that physical written instruction. And even more so, the Israelites going into the wilderness, and then the time of the judges, the time of the kings, the time of the prophets, the more that things transpired, the more that things had to be documented in order for us to see. In for you to live, you have to not do what all of these other people did. But again, like you said, CB, a lot of people see it as bondage, as instead of as our lifeline. It's like our saving grace is it's in here. It's in here if we're just willing to open up the book and take heed to it. And the other ones that have been removed, right? Because these books like Enoch, Sirach, Jasher, they hold so much more meat too that help us to understand the gray areas, if you will, that are in the canon Bible as well. All right, so Enoch 48, we have verses 1 through 3, and it says, and in that place, I saw the fountain of righteousness, which was inexhaustible, and around it were many fountains of wisdom. And all the thirsty drank of them, and were filled with wisdom. And their dwellings were with the righteous and holy and elect. And at that hour, the Son of Man was named in the presence of the Adon of spirits, and his name before the head of days. Yeah, before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made, his name was named before the Adon of spirits. And it's interesting because I think it's in Proverbs 8 or 9, it speaks about how wisdom was in existence before the earth was even created. So you can obviously make the connection once again that his ruach is a fountain of wisdom for us. And if we would just deny our flesh, deny the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life, then we'll be able to be that clean house where the Holy Spirit can actually dwell. Sirach 24, 30 through 34 says, I went forth like a canal from a river and like a water channel into a garden. I said, I will water my orchard and drench my garden plot. And lo, my canal became a river, and my river became a sea. I will again make instruction shine forth like the dawn, and I will make it shine afar. I will again pour out teaching like prophecy, and leave it to all future generations. Observe that I have not labored for myself alone, but for all who seek instruction. So here again, we see the waters building up. It became a garden or garden plot that was drenched in water, a canal that became a river, the river that became a sea, and it's all leading down to the instructions that we received. So yeah, we can just take that into account. So continuing, verses 3 through 6 now. These are the connections that I have for them. Revelation 11:1, it says, then I was given a reed like a measuring rod. So we see that he also he had the line in his hand, right, to measure each of the 1,000 cubits for the waters that increased in depth. And so it says, and the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of the Elohim, the altar, and those who worship there. Revelation 21:5. Then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and faithful. Zechariah 2:1. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand, same as the same man with the measuring line in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 43. And then, so this is once again just a connection that this is our Mashiach, who is the one who is leading the way here for Ezekiel. He took me there, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze. He had a line of flax and a measuring rod in his hand, and he stood in the gateway. Habakkuk 2:14. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Adon as the waters cover the sea. So again, connections of the waters, connecting with knowledge, connecting with wisdom, the living waters that he provides, that he offers to those who choose to believe. Isaiah 11:9, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of knowledge as the Adon, as the waters cover the sea. So same as Habakkuk, just a second account there. Revelation 7:9. After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. So, of course, I connected this because we are seeing here, this was actually a connection with verse 7. As I mentioned, when I saw the very many trees on one side and another, I automatically thought of his people. And then Genesis 2, 9 through 10. So I'm going to read some of the connections here for verses 7 through 12. And out of the ground, the Adon Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became four river heads. So we see in the Garden of Eden, there were four river heads, four rivers that divided, right? But in the new temple, in New Jerusalem, we're going to see just one river flowing out. And I believe that's intentional too, because we have our one true living Elohim that will be finally dwelling with us. Isaiah 44, 3 through 5. For I will pour water on him who is thirsty, and floods on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit on your descendants and my blessing on your offspring. They will spring up among the grass like willows by the watercourses. One will say, I am the Adon's. Another will call himself by the name of Jacob. Another will write with his hand, the Adon's, and name himself by the name of Israel. Pretty self-explanatory, that one, right? I mean, again, all of these connect. They have so many similarities. When you really start to understand what those waters represent, you're able to see yourself in it too. I see myself. I hope you guys do too. Isaiah 41, 17 through 19. The poor and needy seek water, but there is none. Their tongues fail for thirst. I, the Adon, will hear them. I, the Elohim of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers in desolate heights and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar and the acacia tree, the myrtle and the oil tree. I will set in the desert the cypress tree and the pine and the box tree together. So if you think about this, I don't know. For me, it sounds like a mixed multitude in the wilderness. As I mentioned, towards the end of the chapter, he is speaking about multiple different the sojourner that joins the bloodline Israelites, those also receive an inheritance. So whoever chooses to enter into that wilderness season following him, no matter what, that's what the end result will be. Isaiah 55, 1. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come, buy and eat. Yes, come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Here, this one, I believe it connects very well to the scripture that I read earlier in Revelation that says, come, I think it was, let me see. Let me go back up. Verse 17 of chapter 22, and the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let him who hears say, come, and let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely. So again, it's all throughout the scriptures. He makes it a point to let us know that we have the opportunity to follow him and to receive the inheritance of life abundantly. Ephesians 2, 1 through 5, and it says, and you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked, according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. But the Elohim, who is rich in mercy, because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Yasha. By grace you have been saved. So just a quick parentheses there of what actually takes place because of the choice that we made when we choose to die to ourselves, because we were previously dead, our spirits were dead, and when we made the choice to die to our flesh, we became alive and with our Messiah. Then, of course, we have Matthew 4:19 that says, Then he said to them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. So how else are you able to fish men if there is no water to fish them out of? So we see that connection in depth here, just basically making a point to point out that once you come out of those waters, there is new life. Numbers 34, 1 through 15. So this one, it's also noted. Oh, actually, this is for verses 13 through 14. So let me go back to the slides really quick. Okay, so I hadn't read this. Well, I read already John 7. So it says, Yasha may very well have had this image of Ezekiel in mind, or a similar one, when he spoke of rivers of living water in John 7, 37 to 38. There is a valid spiritual application of this wonderful image and a literal fulfillment to come. Ezekiel's guide describes the miraculous properties of this river. As the river flowed out from Jerusalem, then down into the Dead Sea, those lifeless waters were healed. That's in verse 8. There would be a very great multitude of fish in that strange body of water that previously held no life. So again, we would be fishers of men, and there's a great multitude of fish that is described as well in those waters. And this can and will be fulfilled. Oh, wait, hold on. Am I not sharing? Oh, okay. I am sharing the screen. So the picture's like your dream, Silvi. That's beautiful. So this canon will be fulfilled both literally in a coming kingdom age and is also a fitting symbol of the Elohim's present work through the gospel. So yeah, I think I saw this and I was like, no, I have to share it. You see the rainbow, the representation of the throne, the living waters coming out of a rock. Just beautiful.
But so it it literally, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, no puede ser. It can be.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
Like instead of having like the waterfall, we were going upstream to like that. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm like, what is it? Like I'm like in shock.
that. Aw.
And then on the top, you see how you have like the mountains on the side?
Mm-hmm.
There are people there.
There were
Like
people there?
yes,
Your dream? Oh my gosh.
yes. So it was
Wow.
like whoever was coming out of the water was going there. Like that was like the final destination.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps.
I know. I'm
Wow.
like, what is this?
Wow.
2 years later, here's the picture of your dream.
So speaking. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. All right, let's continue. Okay, so now this is going into verses 13 and 14. So it says, These are the borders which you shall divide, by which you shall divide the land. So this emphasizes that this was not a symbolic or spiritual land, that the Most High gave specific borders to mark it. There will be a real land that will be given to the real 12 tribes of Israel, and obviously the mixed multitude that are grafted in. The boundaries are substantially those originally given to Moses in Numbers 34, 1 through 15. I'm not going to read that portion that I showed you guys, but you can make a note of it just because there's a lot of similarities as it relates to the descriptions and things like that. So in Numbers, the southern boundary is given first. Here, the reckoning is from the north. So we see from top to bottom in Ezekiel, whereas it's south to north or bottom to top in the book of Numbers. We also see that he mentions that Joseph shall have two portions, as it was with the division of land under Joshua, the two sons of Joseph. Ephraim, and Manasseh would each have their portion. This granting of the land in the millennial kingdom will be an extension and a fulfillment of those long ago and often repeated promises. We see these things spoken of over and over again, and obviously it's for a purpose in order for us to be able to see it. Just you. So we see it here. There's seven of the tribes on the up on the top, and then five on the bottom, and then of course in the middle is for the prince, for Messiah. And also there's a portion beside the prince for the Levites. And also, as we spoke last week, this could be also a pointing to Melchizedek or Shem, if you will. Um, yeah, and then this is we see the basically the surrounding areas, the different rivers. I believe again that there is a very it's there is a very deep connection of course with the Garden of Eden and the location of where New Jerusalem will be, where the true land is. I mean, the possibilities are endless, of course, but we will know when that day comes what that all will look like. And it's just very exciting to be able to have the understanding, and when we finally are able to behold it, say, wow, that's where it was all along. So just very exciting. Stirs up my ruach. Okay, so again, the command to divide the land. The repeated commands to divide the land indicate that this is a real land, not a spiritual representation. The best way to understand this is that this division of land is yet to come, but will come in a kingdom period when the world is ruled in a direct way by Messiah himself. The land the Most High promised to Israel in this kingdom period would not be for Israelites alone. There would be people from other lands and ethnic groups or strangers living there also. By the Most High's command, these were to be treated as native born among the children of Israel. They would even have inheritance rights. So again, this is just another picture of what the divisions looked like, with the holy portion at the center, which was for the prince and for the Levites, and the sea, the great sea that was on the side, the brook of Egypt, Haran, Gilead. These are the various areas of Dad that Silvana read about, and Damascus, just all of the different landmarks that are spoken of in chapter 47. And then I included this little graphic, of course, because we know Romans 11 is the all-encompassing scripture that speaks about inheritance, about adoption, adoption into the promise. And that's our blessed hope in us being grafted in as wild branches of the cultivated olive tree, which is our Messiah himself, and believing and seeing ourselves as that, so that when that day comes, we've been found worthy because we've been walking as his elect, or walking, just trying to live that life of righteousness, doing the best that we can within this world that we are living in. And Liz said, which is so important, which is why it's so important to stay focused and rooted in him. It will all be worth it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree. Okay, so let's go now to some more connections. So as I said, I'm not going to read Numbers 34, but you can make a note of it because this is just a second account, or a first account rather, of how the land was divided back then. We also have, and you can make a note. Well, actually, I'll mention this once we get to chapter 38. So we have here the next portions are all different oaths that were made through the descendants, or through the predecessors of Moses. So we have Abraham, the promise that was given to Abraham in Genesis 13:15, for all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever. And then Genesis 15:18 through 21. On the same day, the Adon made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your descendants, I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. the Canaanites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and the Jebusites. So again, these are different landmarks, or obviously these are tribes or peoples, but their land was what was being handed over or promised to Abraham. Genesis 26:3. This was the promise to Isaac. And it says, dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I give all these lands. I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham, your father. And then lastly, the promise to Jacob in Genesis 28:13. And behold, the Adon stood above it and said, I am the Adon Elohim of Abraham, your father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your descendants. So again, those promises were reiterated over and over again. They needed to hear it. How much more do we, How much more do we need to eat these scrolls on a daily basis so that we are continued to be strengthened, knowing what the promises for redemption are going to be to us? And then, so we already read 12:7. No, we read 13:7, 13:15, but I'm going to read Genesis 12:7 as well. And it says, then the Adon appeared to Abraham and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Adon who had appeared to him. And I believe this was at Bethel, if I'm not mistaken. Then we also have Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but every decision is from the Adon. So we know that one of the ways that they made choices or decisions was by casting lots. But even so, those were directed by the Most High. Everything that ever happened, even today, anything that happens in our lives, if I don't know, you flip a coin, for whatever reason, it's always going to lean towards what he intends to do in our lives, especially when you are following him wholeheartedly and, and aiming to do his will in everything that you do. Deuteronomy 1:8 says, see, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Adon swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them and their descendants after them. So again, I'm just reading all of these different connections to remind us of the promises that were given to our predecessors, whether we are grafted in or bloodline Israelites. These are promises that apply to us today as well. All right, so let me see if I have anything else for this chapter. Yes, so this is the last portion here. So in the last portion, verses 15 through, I believe it's 15 through 23, if I'm not mistaken, or obviously the last verse, it speaks about how he is the Adon who is there, right? So it seems that as the land was apportioned from north to south in bands or layers. One notable difference is that there is no land occupied on the east side of the Jordan River, where the three Transjordan tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, formerly had land. So it's like this area over here. And then we see for Dan. Curiously, Dan is omitted in the listing of tribes regarding the 144,000 in Revelation 7. I know that we've talked about this in the past as well. Dan is not included there, and I believe it's Manasseh who replaces Dan in that list. Many think it was because Dan was the first tribe to embrace idolatry in Genesis 49 and then in Judges 17 and 18. But now, as a demonstration of the Most High's great grace, not only is Dan included, but they are listed first. They're the first ones to get a portion. And then also for Judah, it's immediately evident that Judah and Benjamin, the tribes which remained faithful to the Davidic dynasty, will be honored by proximity to the center of the millennial kingdom. So we see Judah listed here and here. So the holy portion is right here, and then we see Judah and the holy portion sandwiched in between Judah and Benjamin, which I believe is just another promise fulfilled due to obedience. All right, so connections now. We have 1 Kings 4:24. And Liz said, which I believe also is because the Lion of Judah coming from that house. Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, obviously the reason why Messiah came from that bloodline was because of the Davidic dynasty, the obedience and all of the things that, or how we had at least a handful of the righteous kings from the southern kingdom. So 1 Kings 4:24, for he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river from Tifsa even to Gaza, namely over all the kings on this side of the river, and he had peace on every side around him. And this is speaking of Solomon, who ruled over the allotments. Numbers 34:6. As for the western border, you shall have the great sea for a border. This shall be your western border. And we saw that in the picture that the great sea was on the west side. And then Revelation 21:1. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also, there was no more sea, which is pretty interesting. We're seeing these rivers this river that's coming out of the temple itself, which metaphorically speaking can be a representation of our Messiah. And at the same time, there's also talk about no more sea, no more sun, no more moon. His glory is gonna be our light. So, obviously the physical things are eventually going to become spiritual, but there will be a time where things will still be physical as he dwells physically with us as well. And Exodus 12:38. So this is for the ending portion of this chapter, 21 through 23, where we are seeing the strangers who dwell among you and who bear children among you. They shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. This is the beautiful, blessed hope and the promise that we have, that they shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. So again, it doesn't matter your tribe, your creed, your tongue, none of that. All that matters is your belief and your obedience to follow. So Exodus 12:38, a mixed multitude went up with them also, and flocks and herds, a great deal of livestock. And this was obviously in the first Exodus. Exodus 22:21, you shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So now we're gonna go over a few precepts here in the Torah itself that speak about how to treat the stranger, the sojourner. Exodus 23:9. Also, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt, as we are now in spiritual Egypt, spiritual Babylon. Leviticus 19:10 and then verse 34. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Adon, your Elohim. The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Adon, your Elohim. Then Ephesians 3:6, that the Gentiles should be fellow heirs of the same body and partakers of his promise in Christ through the gospel. So as we see it in the beginning, we also see it towards the end. Romans 10:12, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Adon over all is rich to all who call upon him. And that's key. Rich to all who call upon him. Revelation 7, 9, and 10, or 9 through 10. After these things, I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, Salvation belongs to our Elohim who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So beautiful, so beautiful. And let me see. Okay. And lastly, for this concludes chapter 47, Deuteronomy 14:29. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates, may come and eat and be satisfied, and the Adon your Elohim may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Such a beautiful promise once again. So obviously we know that finally in New Jerusalem the Levites will have the high priest will have their portion in that holy portion that we see right at the center of everything. So there's redemption in that as well. All right, so that's chapter 47. Now we're going to jump into 48. And I believe this one may be a little bit shorter because again, this one is much more straightforward because we're going to see now the division of the land, the portions. So Liz, you can go ahead and just read all the way through.
Gotcha. Now these are the names of the tribes. From the northern border, along the road of Hethlon, at the entrance of Hamath, the Hazar Enon, the border of Damascus northward, in the direction of Hamath, there shall be one section for Dan, from its east to its west side, by the border of Dan. From the east side to the west, one section for Asher, by the border of Asher. From the east side to the west, one section for Naphtali. By the border of Naphtali, from the east side to the west, one section for Manasseh. By the border of Manasseh, from the east side to the west, one section for Ephraim. By the border of Ephraim, from the east side to the west, one section for Reuben. By the border of Reuben, from the east side to the west, one section for Judah. By the border of Judah, from the east side to the west, shall be the district which you shall set apart, 25,000 cubits in width, and in length the same as one of the other portions, from the east side to the west, with the sanctuary in the center. The district that you shall set apart for the Adon shall be 25,000 cubits in length and 10,000 in width. For to these, to the priests, the holy district shall belong. On the north, 25,000 cubits in length. On the west, 10,000 in width. On the east, 10,000 in width. And on the south, 25,000 in length. The sanctuary of the Adon shall be in the center. It shall be for the priests of the sons of Zadok, who are sanctified, who have kept my charge, who did not go astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And this district of land that is set apart shall be to them a thing most holy by the border of the Levites. Opposite the border of the priests, the Levites shall have an area 25,000 cubits in length and 10,000 in width. Its entire length shall be 25,000 and its width 10,000. And they shall not sell or exchange any of it. They may not alienate this best part of the land, for it is holy to the Adon. The 5,000 cubits in width that remain along the edge of the 25,000 shall be for general use by the city, for dwellings and common land, and the city shall be in the center. These shall be its measurements: the north side 4,500 cubits, the south side 4,500, the east side 4,500, and the west side 4,500. The common land of the city shall be to the north 250 cubits, to the south 250, to the east 250, and to the west 250. The rest of the length alongside to the district of the holy section shall be 10,000 cubits to the east and 10,000 to the west. It shall be adjacent to the district of the holy section, and its sorry, I got lost here. And its produce shall be food for the workers of the city. The workers of the city from all the tribes of Israel shall cultivate it. The entire district shall be 25,000 cubits by 25,000 cubits foursquare. You shall set apart the holy district with the property of the city. The rest shall belong to the prince, on one side and on the other of the holy district and of the city's property, next to the 25,000 cubits of the holy district as far as the eastern border, and westward next to the 25,000 as far as the western border, adjacent to the tribal portions. It shall belong to the prince. It shall be the holy district, and the sanctuary of the temple shall be in the center. Moreover, apart from the possession of the Levites and the possession of the city, which are in the midst of what belongs to the prince, the area between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin shall belong to the prince. As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side to the west, Benjamin shall have one section. By the border of Benjamin, from the east side to the west, Simeon shall have one section. By the border of Simeon, from the east side to the west, Issachar shall have one section. By the border of Issachar, from the east side to the west, Zebulun shall have one section. By the border of Zebulun, from the east side to the west, Gad shall have one section. By the border of Gad, on the south side toward the south, the border shall be from Tamar to the waters of Meribah, by Kadesh, along the brook to the great sea. This is the land which you shall divide by lot as an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. And these are their portions, says the Adon. These are the exits of the city. On the north side, measuring 4,500 cubits, the gates of the city shall be named after the tribes of Israel. The three gates northward, one gate for Reuben, one gate for Judah, and one gate for Levi. On the east side, 4,500 cubits, three gates. Three gates, one gate for Joseph, one gate for Benjamin, and one gate for Dan. On the south side, measuring 4,500 cubits, three gates. One gate for Simeon, one gate for Issachar, and one gate for Zebulun. On the west side, 4,500 cubits with their three gates, one gate for Gad, one gate for Asher, and one gate for Naphtali. All the way around shall be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that day shall be, the Adon is there. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So I did give a little bit of a glimpse reading through this portion. Um, it was out of order. So this actually is a summary of chapter 48. And so we see as it was described, we see that the first allotment or portions were given to the first seven. Then we see the holy portion that went to the prince and to the sons of Zadok, the Levites that were the sons of Zadok, and they received I would say maybe like a quarter of a portion of the holy portion, or maybe a third of it rather. And then the last five sons of Jacob or tribes received the bottom portion of everything there. So I'm not going to read this all again, obviously, because we already went through it. But you can also reference Joshua chapters 13 through 19, where you see how the lands were divided during that time as well. It's all aligned. It's all the same. It all makes sense. We see also, just as New Jerusalem is sandwiched between Judah and Benjamin here in the New Jerusalem, right? We see in the old land that Judah and Benjamin also, or Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem is also sandwiched between the allotted portion of Benjamin and Judah. So everything repeats itself history repeating itself, nothing new under the sun, but at the same time, all very brand new as well. So the district of the Adon and the area for the Levites here, we see bordering the area of the priests will be land that the Elohim has set aside for the Levites who would serve at the temple to support and assist the work of the priests. The land will remain the Most High set apart possession. Therefore, the Levites will not be permitted to sell or exchange any of it. That's why I included here Luke 19:46, where Messiah himself was saying, "My house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." And this, of course, is what he was addressing to the Pharisees, just making a point of saying, pointing out the evil that they were doing in his house, in the temple. As previously described in Ezekiel 45, 1 through 6, this is an area that Israel will set apart for the Most High. It contains the temple described in Ezekiel 40 through 43, with the sanctuary of the Most High in the center. This will be a district set aside for the Adon, that he in turn provides for his priests. And then we see at the end of the chapter how each of the each of the gates are allotted to each of the tribes of Judah, Jacob, sorry. And I just included here, well, I found this, I thought it was pretty cool because we see it also in, I believe it's in Revelation, how each of the sons of Jacob also have a specific stone assigned to them. I'm not sure if it's in Revelation or in the Torah, but I could be wrong. So I'm going to go into some of the connections first before we go to the last. I think it's just maybe one more slide that I have. And Liz said the last portion correlates so perfectly with John's vision in Revelation 21 when he saw New Jerusalem coming down. Yes, I believe I have that precept included. So, or I already read it as well. All right, so let's get to it. So first we have, of course, Revelation 7, 4 through 8, that speaks about the 144,000. And it says, "And I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. Of the tribe of Judah, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Gad, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Asher, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Levi, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Issachar, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Joseph, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. So obviously, ties in perfectly with how the land was allotted. Maybe not in the same order, but still very similar. And I'm sorry, let me go to the chat really quick. That correlates also with last week's portion, Ezekiel 46, where it says there was a row of building stones around them. Yes, yeah, all of it correlates. Chapter 40 through 48 are very very beautiful in how they, it just brings everything together after everything that Ezekiel has had to speak and also demonstrate to the Israelites. He was able, I believe, in his obedience to only speak when he was told to speak, to lay on his side the way he did for 300 plus days, to shave his head, to eat the way that he had to eat, from the burning poop and all of that stuff, all the things that he did to obey the Most High, and then finally be able to receive this beautiful promise through those visions. It's just a great example for us, that your obedience has a reward. I mean, I would say maybe he, after seeing this, he was probably like, "Oh, I could die now. I've seen it all. I can die now. I can die in peace." Especially after having lost his wife. All right. So continuing now, we have So these now are connections for verses 1 through 8. Obviously, Revelation 7 was as well. So Genesis 49, 16 and 17 says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heel so that its rider shall fall backward. I included this because, again, as we saw here, Dan is not included in this allotment. But if we go back once again, we see that in this portion, he is the first one to receive land or his allotment. Let's see. Let's go back up. Right here. So verse 2, or actually verse 1. In verse 1, immediately you see that there shall be one section for Dan from the east to its west side. So I truly do believe that that's the Most High's redemption over his one of his sons. Numbers 18:20, the Adon said to Aaron, you have no inheritance in their land, nor shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the children of Israel. And if we are to see ourselves as a royal priesthood, then we shall know. And I know that I mentioned this last week as well, as our Messiah said that he had nowhere to lay his head, being our high priest, us ourselves too, being his royal priesthood, know that he is our portion. And finally, in New Jerusalem is where we will have our place, where we belong. Revelation 22:3 says, and there shall be no more curse, but the throne of the Elohim and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And Revelation 21:22, but I saw no temple in it, for the Elohim Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And this is again speaking of the water that was coming out directly from the throne. So there is that distinction. In Revelation 21, the river is flowing out of the throne of heaven, or the throne of the Elohim. And in Ezekiel's vision, it's flowing out of the temple, which, essentially it's still the same thing because we know that the throne is right at the center, of the temple. All right, so as I mentioned earlier in Ezekiel 45, 1-6, so I'm going to read this too. Moreover, when you divide the land by lot into inheritance, you shall set apart a district for the Adon, a holy section of the land. Its length shall be 25,000 cubits and the width 10,000. It shall be holy throughout its territory all around. Of this there shall be a square plot for the sanctuary, 500 by 500 rods, with 50 cubits around it for an open space. So this is the district you shall measure, 25,000 cubits long and 10,000 wide. In it shall be the sanctuary, the most holy place. It shall be a holy section of the land, belonging to the priests, the ministers of the sanctuary, who come near to minister to the Adon. It shall be a place for their houses and a holy place for the sanctuary. An area 25,000 cubits long and 10,000 wide shall belong to the Levites, the ministers of the temple. They shall have 20 chambers as a possession. You shall appoint as the property of the city an area 5,000 cubits wide and 25,000 long, adjacent to the district of the holy section. It shall belong to the whole house of Yasharallah. So just some correlations with as everything once again just flows together, reminding us what the portion was going to be for the Levites, and knowing and understanding that this once again is speaking of the millennial kingdom. Matthew 24:45-46. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. And this is in correlation with verses 9-12. So let me just go back there really quick. So it's more specifically verse 11. It shall be for the priests of the sons of Zadok who are sanctified, who have kept my charge, who did not go astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. So it's just basically him speaking of those who remain steadfast and obedient to him. Also, Revelation 2:10, do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. And obviously, we don't 100% know what those 10 days look like, whether they are going to be an actual 10 days or if, from Feast of Trumpets to Day of Atonement. It makes a lot of sense, obviously, that that's what it will be. But at the same time, a day to him is like 1,000, right? 1,000 years, or 1,000 years is like a day. So whatever that looks like, all glory to him, for those of us who do remain steadfast, even while we are tested, remain faithful until death to receive the crown of life. 1 Peter 5:4 says, and when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that does not fade away. For 2 Timothy 4:7-8, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me that crown of righteousness, which the Adon, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. And not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing, who have loved the truth of who he is. Revelation 27:21, but the field, when it is released in the Jubilee, shall be holy to the Adon as a devoted field. It shall be the possession of the priest. So obviously here just a correlation of the allotment or the promise to the sons of Zadok. All right, so now verses 13-14, I just have two connections here. Deuteronomy 12:19. Let me go back just to recap. And this is again speaking of the portion to the Levites. Take heed to yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live in your land. So this was an instruction to all of the Israelites to provide a portion of their possessions to the Levites. Leviticus 27:28, nevertheless, no devoted offering that a man may devote to the Adon of all that he has, both man and beast, or the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted offering is most holy to the Adon. Now 15-20. So I don't have a lot for really 15-22. Where I really have more is in the end portion here. So let me just read these. So Revelation 21:16. And so now again, this is the measurements, of all of the different areas. And we have here specifically the holy section. So that was that allotment area for the prince and for the Levites. And we see the division in the graphic as well that I showed. I'll go back and show it again in a minute. So Revelation 21:16, the city is laid out as a square. Its length is as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. Hebrews 12:17, for you know that afterward, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. I had that with, let me just see. Yeah, 15-20. But I'm not sure where it fits in again. I'll go back to it. I'll go back to that one. If I can make it make sense. Ezekiel 45:7-8. The prince shall have a section on one side and the other of the holy district and the city's property, and bordering on the holy district and the city's property, extending westward on the west side and eastward on the east side. The length shall be side by side with one of the tribal portions. From the west border to the east border, the land shall be his possession in Israel. And my princes shall no more oppress my people, but they shall give the rest of the land to the house of Israel according to their tribes. So again, just that promise that there will be no more tears. There, will be nothing but joy. Everything will be equal. Everyone will be in harmony with one another. Ezekiel 34, 23 through 24. I will establish one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, my servant David. He shall feed them and be their shepherd. And I, the Adon, will be their Elohim, and my servant David, a prince among them. The Adon, have spoken. This is now correlating with verses 21 through 22. Speaking of the prince. So that was Ezekiel 45, 34, and now 37, 24. David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. And then 23 through, actually, no, this one is also through for verses 21 and 22. Then the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Or, if you know, Jezreel also represents the day of judgment. For verses 23 to 29, I literally just have this one portion, this one precept. Then Moses commanded the children of Israel, saying, This is the land which you shall inherit by lot, which the Adon has commanded to give to the 9 tribes and to the half tribe. So this was of the first portion, and then we had the other three tribes that received a portion afterwards. So again, chapter 34 of Numbers, verses 1 through 15. It's a good review just to see how the allotments were in that time. Okay, so now I have for verses 30 through 34. First, Revelation 21, 12 through 14. And it says, Also she had a great and high wall with 12 gates and 12 angels at the gates, and names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So we know that it was the 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Jacob, and then the 12 apostles who served the Messiah during his time. Isaiah 26, 1 through 2. In that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. The Elohim will appoint salvation for walls and bulwarks. Open the gates that the righteous nation which keeps the truth may enter in. The righteous nation which keeps the truth. And there's a precept I believe it's in the Psalm that says, your word, I love your truth, something like that, or no, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is the truth. And who is the word? Our Messiah. So our Messiah himself is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life that we are to follow. All of it connects. All of it connects, always. And Revelation 21, 21, and 25. The 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate was of 1 pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. Its gates shall not be shut at all by day. There shall be no night there. So that's what I was saying earlier, of course. No sun, no moon, no water. Everything like the street of gold, transparent glass. It's going to be glorious and beautiful. And finally, Isaiah 60, verse 11. Therefore, your gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day or night, that men may bring to you the wealth of the Gentiles and their kings in procession. So just an order to things is what I gather from this as well. Let me double check the slides really quick. Okay. So I'm gonna go gonna come back to the slides. Just to show again the allotment, how we have for the New Jerusalem, what that looked like, what it was described as for the various gates and the names of the tribes, the sons. And as previously described in Ezekiel 45, 7 through 8, there will be a land set aside for the Messiah's appointed ruler, the prince. The area between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin shall belong to the prince. There will be additional lands that would be given to the prince. So, this is a depiction that we see here, and then we have the inner area where the high priest is to go into, right? After listing the land allotments for the 7 tribes north of the Adon's district in Ezekiel 48, 1 through 8, now the list continues with the land allotments for the tribes to the south of the Most High's district. This is the land which you shall divide by lot as an inheritance. That's what it says in the verse. So each of the tribes would be restored to the land, and none of them will be forgotten before the Adon. Hence, once again, the allotment that was given to Dan, despite his whatever his sin truly was, because there's a lot of possibilities, right? All right, so finally, I have quite a bit of precepts for verse 35. So let's just read it one more time. All the way around shall be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that day shall be, the Adon is there. Oh, and I'm sorry, Liz has said Messiah himself prayed this. Yeah, the sanctify them by your truth, your word is truth, right? I think that's actually in, if I'm not mistaken, it's Psalm 119, the most beautiful psalm of all, that speaks about his perfect Torah. John 17. Okay. So yeah, so he's quoting it there. Okay, so again, like I said, the remaining connecting precepts are all connecting to verse 35. So Revelation 21:3 says, and I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of the Elohim is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. The Elohim himself will be with them and be their Elohim. Zechariah 2:10, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming, and I will dwell in your midst, says the Adon. The Adon is there. Revelation 22:3, and there shall be no more curse, but the throne of the Elohim and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. Again, the Adon is there. Jeremiah 33:16, in those days Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell safely. And this is the name by which she will be called, the Adon, our righteousness. And because of our righteousness, he is there. Isaiah 12:6, cry out and shout, O inhabitant of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel in your midst. He is there. I'm going to say it over and over again. Jeremiah 3:17, at that time Jerusalem shall be called the throne of the Adon, and all the nations shall be gathered to it, to the name of the Adon, to Jerusalem. No more shall they follow the dictates of their evil hearts. So they'll all be called to the throne, all be called to the mountain, to follow him, to worship him. Joel 3:21, for I will acquit them of the guilt of bloodshed whom I had not acquitted, for the Adon dwells in Zion. He is there. The precept before Jeremiah, Isaiah 12:6, or were you referring to Revelation 22:3? Okay. All right, Ezekiel 35:10. Because you have said, these 2 nations and these 2 countries shall be mine and will possess them, although the Adon was there. So this obviously is speaking of the carnal possession, but even in the midst of that the Most High was there and will be there again. Isaiah 24:23, the moon will be disgraced and the sun ashamed, for the Adon of hosts will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and before his elders gloriously. because there will be no more sunlight and no more moonlight, for he will be our light. Isaiah 14:32. What will they answer the messengers of the nation? That the Adon has founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall take refuge in it. Jeremiah 23:6. In his days, Judah will be saved and Israel will dwell safely. I think, did I already include this one? Sorry. Oh no, it's just repeated several times in Jeremiah. Now this is his name by which he will be called, the Adonai righteousness. And then the last two, Psalm 132:14. This is my resting place forever. Here I will dwell, for I have desired it. And I believe this is twofold because he both desires to dwell with us as much as we desire to dwell with him. Well, that is those who truly desire to live for him, right? And so lastly, Psalm 48:14. For this is Elohim, our Elohim forever and ever. He will be our guide, even to death. Yes, of course, Liz.
Sorry, it's too much to type. Yes, no, that I wanted to add to what you just said about he's always wanted to dwell with us from the beginning. So I feel like what we see in this last part of Ezekiel, it's basically kind of like the reversal occurring. Like if you guys remember, like from the beginning in Genesis, obviously, because of the disobedience to his commandments, right? There was that division immediately, right? And then later on in the wilderness, the same exact thing because they broke the covenant. His presence departed from the camp where, he had done the tabernacle so that he could dwell with them, so that his presence could dwell with them. As a matter of fact, we see that throughout Exodus. And it's so crazy because of their wickedness, he had to remove his presence. So it was always his desire to dwell with us. It was always his desire. I remember, I don't know if you guys remember when we did that study with with Rob, that he shared that revelation that oh my goodness, when he said he yearns to be with someone, like to share his life with someone, basically. In other words, that's why we are his bride. He desires our communion. Like it's just beautiful. And I feel like this vision that not only John saw in Revelation, but also that Ezekiel it's describing here is basically this reversal of now coming back into that covenant, but not only into that eternal covenant where he will have his sanctuary dwelling amongst them or us forever. Because that was the consistent theme from the beginning. Like if you think about it, it was always his desire to dwell with his people. And which is why we're to come in one heart and one accord. But anyway, yeah, that's all I wanted to
Yeah.
say.
No, thank you. It's like a restored marriage, like a restored marriage and new wedding vows. And for those of us who didn't know him before, just making those new vows to him and having the beautiful wedding supper that is to come and what we are to look forward to. Obviously, being able to see the relationship with him as a marriage covenant truly changes everything because not a lot of people honestly have that revelation or understand what it means. So when you see it as a marriage covenant and vows that you are making to him, it's easier or it makes more sense to take it seriously and for what it truly is. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Liz, because it is so true. He desires to dwell with us and to be in communion with us. As Revelation 3:20 says, that he knocks at the door waiting to dine with us. For us, we have to be the ones to open the door. So lastly, we have here, it says the city, the Adon is there, or Shema. Shema means the Adon is there. The city Jerusalem in the Messiah's kingdom to come will have memorial gates for each tribe. The image of a city with 12 gates distributed equally among the four sides and named after the 12 tribes of Israel is strikingly unconventional. City walls were usually designed intentionally with only one gate. But here, obviously, we see that there's three gates on each side. The 12 gates beautifully symbolize at the same time, in visible form, the unity and harmony in the nation so long divided. All the ancient rivalries, contentions, and jealousies will be gone, and blessed unity will prevail. One ahad, like Liz just said. All this is suggestive of, but not the same as the eternal state as described in Revelation 21, 12 through 14. The whole passage leads us to compare to Revelation 21 with its description of a new heaven and a new earth and the vision of New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from the Elohim. It too had 12 gates named after the 12 tribes of Israel, but it also had 12 foundations inscribed with the name of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So that's the only distinct difference that we're able to see, which obviously it makes sense that Ezekiel would only have the 12 tribes, while in the revelation that John received, it would also include the apostles because that time had not come to pass yet. So sorry, let me check the chat. Oh, yes. Yes, exactly. So really, it all makes sense. It all ties together in just a beautiful tapestry of promise from our Elohim, who desires to dwell with us. With that being said, we have officially completed the book of Ezekiel. Again, like I said in the beginning of the study tonight, it has been such a beautiful journey. I am so grateful to have been able to do this with all of you. And I'm grateful that I was entrusted with the treasures that were hidden in this book to facilitate these studies. I never take anything like this lightly, and I give all the glory to our Heavenly Father for what He has poured into all of us, because I have learned so much and have been stirred up all the more to just continue to consecrate myself and walk in a space of purification toward Him and sanctification daily, just seeking to deny myself. And I'm saying myself because obviously this is personal for me, but I believe that everyone here, everyone who watches these studies has the opportunity to feel the same way, and know that in our obedience, there's the reward of eternity. And that's such a beautiful thing to look forward to. So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us all of these weeks. You may not see me here for a little bit, but I will still be part of the studies that my beautiful sister Liz will be facilitating moving forward. And I'm just excited for the next the next book, the next chapters, the next studies. So thank you so much. I pray you all receive from this, and yeah, have a great day, have a great night, have a great life. Shalom.